Do you want to keep the best creatures around for yourself? How about gaining value turn after turn? If this sounds like you, Marchessa of the Black Rose might be the commander for you. But first, if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below to keep up to date on all the newest deck techs. Now to the commander. Marchessa the Black Rose is 1, a blue, a black, and a red for a legendary creature human wizard 3/3 dethrone. Whenever this creature attacks, a player with the most life, or tied for the most life, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Other creatures you control have dethrone. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it dies, return that card to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. An interesting note with this is the wording on that last ability. It says, a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it gets returned to the battlefield under your control. Nowhere in there does it mention anything about the owner of the card, meaning we can take our opponent's stuff and just sacrifice it to get it back for good. Zealous Conscripts is one of the great ways of pulling this off. 4 and a red, creature, human warrior, 3/3 with haste. When Zealous Conscripts enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent until end of turn. Untap that permanent, it gains haste and until end of... In this version of the deck, we focus more on getting creatures back and triggering their ETB abilities, but it's important to know what options are available to you. Speaking of creatures with powerful ETB abilities, or creatures with strong abilities, when it dies, we prefer them with evasion of some kind to make sure that we can get the counter. But some cards are just too good to pass up, like Aether Channeler. 2 and a blue, creature human wizard, 2/1. When Aether Channeler enters the battlefield, choose one. Create a 1/1 white bird flying creature token. Return another target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Draw a card. This one's great because of the flexibility it offers us. Blockers in the sky, bounce, or card draw are all strong options, which is great. Baleful Strix is blue-black, artifact creature bird, 1/1, flying death touch. When Baleful Strix enters the battlefield, draw a card. More card draw, but this time with evasion. It's also just an amazing blocker. Great Merchant of Asphodel is 3 black for a creature zombie, 2/4. When Great Merchant of Asphodel enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion, a black. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. Each black and the mana cost of permanents you control counts towards your devotion to black. Gary! Gaining and draining can be a great way to close out the game if we have enough board presence. Just don't do it so much that you become the player with the most amount of life, otherwise you can't trigger Dethrone. Imperial Recruiter is 2 and a red for a creature type human advisor, 1/1. When Imperial Recruiter enters the battlefield, search your library for a creature card with power 2 or less, reveal it, and put it to your hand, then shuffle. This will tutor up a bunch of our more powerful cards in the deck, which is a great ability to have on repeat. Iron Apprentice is 1 mana, artifact creature, construct, 0/0. Iron Apprentice enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. When Iron Apprentice dies, if it had counters on it, put those counters on target creature you control. This can set up any of our creatures to be sacrificed, and it comes back every single time as well. This is a deceptively strong card for a common. Junji, the Midnight Sky, is 3 black, legendary creature, dragon spirit, 5/5 with flying and menace. When Junji, the Midnight Sky, dies, choose one. Each opponent discards 2 cards and loses 2 life. Or, put target non-dragon creature card from the graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, you lose 2 life. Reanimation on repeat is yet another great ability to have on demand, and flying means we can very frequently trigger Dethrone off of this card. Jury, Master of the Review, is a black and a red for a legendary creature human shaman, 1/1. Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Jury, Master of the Review. Whenever Jury dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. This card will deal a metric ton of damage when it inevitably kicks the bucket, and to any target as well, which is a pretty solid choice. Lord Xander the Collector is 4 blue, red, legendary creature, vampire, demon, noble. When Lord Xander the Collector enters the battlefield, target opponent discards half of the cards in his or her hand, rounded down. Whenever Lord Xander attacks, defending player mills half their library, rounded down. When Lord Xander dies, target opponent sacrifices half of the non-land permanents they control, rounded down. 6/6. So this card probably isn't super good in the deck, and you could probably cut it. In fact, it might be a good idea to cut it. But it is way too cool of a card for me not to include here. Forcing your opponents to sacrifice half of their board on repeat sounds like it would be super cool, even if it's hard to pull off. Puppeteer Click is 3 black, creature type fairy wizard, 3/2 with flying. Whenever Puppeteer Click enters the battlefield, put target creature card from an opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains haste at the beginning of your next end step, exile it. With Persist. Whenever this creature dies, if it had no -1/-1 counters on it, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a -1/-1 counter on it. More reanimation. This can also get a +1/+1 counter off of our commander to cancel out the -1/-1 counter, so we can get this creature to repeatedly trigger even more consistently. Ravenous Chupacabra is 2 black and a black, creature type beast, horror, 2/2. When Ravenous Chupacabra enters the battlefield, destroy target creature an opponent controls. Target removal, over and over again. It's real cool. Solemn Simulacrum is a 4-mana artifact creature golem 2/2. When Solemn Simulacrum enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tap, then shuffle. When Solemn Simulacrum dies, you may draw a card. We don't have much in the way of land ramp, and this one also gets us to card draw. Agent of Treachery is 5 blue, creature type human rogue 2/3. When Agent of Treachery enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 3 or more permanents you don't own, draw 3 cards. This straight up steals our opponent's stuff, and does it for good. And it can target any permanent. Take that! Your planeswalkers are mine now! Haha! Sorry, lost my cool for a second there. But yes, this card, on repeat, is real good. Next, we're going to need some sacrifice outlets to trigger all this value in the first place. Skull Clamp is 1 mana artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/-1. Whenever equipped creature dies, draw 2 cards. Equip costs 1. In this deck, Skull Clamp is less of a sacrifice outlet since the creatures we will be sacrificing will have +1/+1 counters on them, meaning Skull Clamp won't take them down on its own. But the card draw for when we do sacrifice creatures is real good. Goblin Bombardment is 1 and a red. Enchantment, sacrifice a creature, Goblin Bombardment deals 1 damage to any target. Sacrifice to deal 1 damage to anything is real strong. Yahenni, Undying Partisan, is 2 and a black, legendary creature, Aetherborn Vampire. Haste. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Yahenni, Undying Partisan. Sacrifice another creature, Yahenni gains indestructible until end of turn. This can get counters, become indestructible, and sacrifice creatures at instant speed. It's a match made in heaven. Yawgmoth, Thran Physician, is 2 black, legendary creature, human cleric, protection from humans. Pay 1 life, sacrifice another creature, put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature and draw a card. Black, discard a card, proliferate. Choose any number of permanents and or players, and then give each another counter of each kind it already had. Another great sack outlet. Little on the pricey side these days, so cut it if your budget won't allow for it. There are plenty of other great sack outlets out there, such as Carrion Feeder. 1 black, creature type zombie, 1/1, Carrion Feeder can't block. Sacrifice a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on Carrion Feeder. Speaking of good cheap sack outlets, we can get this back since most of the time it will have at least 1 counter on it, and it's an instant speed sack outlet. Next we have cards that synergize with +1/+1 counters, such as Unspeakable Symbol. 1 black, enchantment, pay 3 life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Paying life is a great way to make sure that we don't have the highest life total, and the fact that this doesn't have a once per turn clause is amazing. Absolute auto-include. Drana, Liberator of Malakir, is 1 black and a black, legendary creature vampire ally, flying first strike. Whenever Drana, Liberator of Malakir, deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on each attacking creature you control. This can just make our entire board get +1/+1 counters, which is the kind of thing we love to see here. Herald of Secret Streams is 3 and a blue for a creature, Merfolk Warrior, 2/3. Creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them can't be blocked. Unblockable for a creature with counters on them. Yes, please. Mykias the Unhallowed is 3 black, legendary creature, zombie cleric with Intimidate, and 5/5. Whenever a human deals damage to you, destroy it. Other non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying. Whenever a creature with Undying dies, if it had no +1/+1 counters on it, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Undying on top of Marchessa's ability means our creatures can just stick around until the end of time. The Anthem effect is really nice as well. Blade of the Blood Chief is a 1 mana artifact equipment. Whenever a creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on equipped creature. If equipped creature is a vampire, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it instead, with an equip cost of 1. We don't really run this for the vampire bit. We're more here for those sweet counters when we sack our creatures, which is something we will be doing. A lot! Finally, we have a couple of cool cards that I couldn't fit anywhere else theme-wise. The Ozolith is a 1 mana legendary artifact. Whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on the Ozolith. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozolith has counters on it, you may move all counters from the Ozolith onto the target creature. This can keep our counters around even if the creatures are kicking the bucket, and it can make one creature into a really big threat. Phyrexian Reclamation is 1 black enchantment, pay 1 and a black, pay 2 life, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. This lets us get creatures back to our hand and also lets us control how much life we have, both of which are really good in this deck. River Kelpie is 3 blue, creature beast, for a 3/3, whenever a River Kelpie or another permanent enters the battlefield from a graveyard, draw a card. Whenever a player casts a spell from a graveyard, draw a card. Persist. Whenever this creature dies, if it had no -1/-1 counters on it, return it to the battlefield under its control with a -1/-1 counter on it. This is going to trigger all the time, and I love it so much. Card draw to get ourselves more cool cards. And that's it. That's the deck. Did I miss anything? If so, let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, don't forget to drop a like. And if you really enjoyed this video, you can always subscribe to my Patreon or even just my channel. Either way, I hope you have a wonderful day.